My father called me into his study the morning after I found my sister in bed with my husband.
He said we needed to talk.
He said I needed to calm down. He said I was overreacting. He said families work through things. He said I should think about what this would do to everyone else. I let him finish. Then I told him exactly what I'd already done. The look on his face told me he finally understood who I'd become. My name is Claire. I was 34 when it happened, living in Charleston, working as a senior accountant at a regional firm. I'd been with David for 8 years, married for 5 of them. We had a 3-bedroom house in a good neighborhood, 2 cars, a golden retriever named Murphy, and what I thought was a solid foundation built on trust and shared goals. My sister Emma was 29, still living with our parents, working part-time at a boutique downtown while figuring things out. She'd always been the one who needed saving, the one who made bad decisions and expected everyone else to clean up the mess. Our parents called it free-spirited. I called it irresponsible. But she was family, so when she needed a place to stay for just a few weeks while she looked for an apartment, I said yes. That was 4 months before I found her. David traveled for work occasionally, nothing excessive, usually just overnight trips to meet with clients or attend conferences. That Tuesday, he was supposed to be in Atlanta. His flight was at 6 a.m., and he'd kiss me goodbye while I was still half asleep, promising to be back by Wednesday evening. I left for work at 7:30, like always. Sat through meetings, reviewed spreadsheets, ate lunch at my desk. At 2 o'clock, my boss sent everyone home early because the air conditioning died and the building was approaching 90 degrees. I texted David to tell him about the early dismissal. No response, but that wasn't unusual. He often had his phone on silent during meetings. I got home at 2:45. David's car was in the driveway. My first thought was that his flight had been canceled. My second thought was annoyance that he hadn't texted me. I walked into the house calling his name, expecting him to be in his home office or maybe napping since he'd been up so early. The house was quiet. Murphy was in the backyard. I set my bag down and walked upstairs. Their bedroom door, the guest room where Emma had been staying, was closed. I heard voices.
Low.
Intimate. Laughing. I opened the door. They were in bed together. Naked. Her hand on his chest. His arm around her shoulders. They weren't having sex at that exact moment, but it was clear they had been. The sheets were tangled. Their clothes were on the floor. They looked comfortable. Familiar. Emma saw me first. She didn't scream or scramble to cover herself. She just looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Not guilt. Not shame. Something closer to defiance. Like she'd been waiting for this moment. David turned his head and went pale. Claire, he said. Just my name. Nothing else. I stood there for what felt like an hour, but was probably 10 seconds. I looked at my sister. At my husband. At the life I thought I had, lying in pieces on a bed I'd helped Emma pick out at IKEA. I didn't cry. Didn't yell. Didn't ask why, or how long, or any of the questions people think you're supposed to ask in moments like that. I just said, get out of my house. Both of you. Now. Then I walked out, closed the door, and went to my own bedroom. I sat on the edge of my bed and called my lawyer. By the time they came downstairs 20 minutes later, dressed and trying to look like something other than exactly what they were, I'd already scheduled an emergency appointment for the next morning. David tried to talk to me. Emma started crying, saying she was sorry, that it just happened, that she didn't mean to hurt me. I didn't respond to either of them. I just pointed at the door. David left first. Emma lingered, trying to explain, to make me understand that she never meant for this, that it was complicated, that she was scared because she was pregnant and didn't know what to do. Pregnant. She said it like it was supposed to make me feel sorry for her. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone I didn't recognize. Someone who'd been living in my house, eating my food, sleeping with my husband, and somehow believed she deserved my sympathy. Leave, I said, before I call the police and have you removed. She left. I spent that night alone in my house, not crying, not breaking things, just sitting in the silence and understanding with perfect clarity that everything I'd believed about my life had been a carefully maintained lie. And, The people I'd trusted most, my husband, my sister, had been the ones maintaining it. The next morning, I met with my lawyer. By noon, I'd filed for divorce citing adultery, which in South Carolina meant I had grounds for a fault-based divorce. I changed the locks on the house. I called the bank and froze our joint accounts pending the divorce proceedings. I contacted David's HR department and informed them that he'd be needing to update his emergency contact information since we were separating. I did all of this before my father called. He left a voicemail first. Said he'd heard from Emma. Said she was devastated. Said we needed to have a family meeting to work this out because that's what families do. They forgive, they move forward. They don't let one mistake destroy everything. One mistake. That's what he called it. I didn't call him back. I was at work, functioning on autopilot, when he showed up at my office at 4:30 in the afternoon. My assistant tried to tell him I was busy, but he walked past her desk like he owned the place. "Claire," he said, standing in my doorway. "We need to talk."
Now.
I looked at him, this man who'd taught me to ride a bike, paid for my college education, walked me down the aisle at my wedding, and felt nothing.
Not here, I said.
"Tomorrow morning. Your house. 9 a.m. He nodded, satisfied that I was being reasonable, and left. I wasn't being reasonable. I was being strategic. That night, I compiled every piece of evidence I could find. Text messages I'd ignored. Credit card statements showing hotel rooms David had paid for on nights he claimed to be working late. Photos on Emma's phone that I'd backed up to the family cloud account without her knowing. Pictures of her and David together. Intimate, dating back 3 months. 3 months of this. 3 months of lies. 3 months of them sneaking around while I worked 60-hour weeks to pay for the house Emma was living in rent-free. By the time I showed up at my parents' house the next morning, I had everything organized in a folder. Printed. Dated. Undeniable. My mother answered the door. She hugged me like I was the one who needed comforting, like I was fragile, like I might break if she wasn't careful. "Your father's in his study," she said softly. "Emma's upstairs. She's not doing well." "Good," I said. My mother pulled back, surprised. "Claire, honey, I know you're hurt, but where's Dad?" She gestured toward the study, and I walked past her without waiting. My father was sitting behind his desk, the same mahogany desk where he'd helped me with homework as a kid, where he taught me about responsibility and consequences, and doing the right thing even when it was hard. He stood when I entered.
"Claire,
sit down." "I'll stand."
He sighed.
"This is difficult for everyone. Your mother and I have been talking with Emma all night. She's confused and scared, and she made a terrible mistake, but she's your sister. And David is my soon-to-be ex-husband." "You've already filed?" "Wednesday morning. The day after I found them."
His jaw tightened.
"Don't you think that was hasty? You didn't even try to talk it through. Marriage is hard work, Claire. It takes forgiveness. Communication. You can't just throw away 8 years because of one. One what? One affair? One betrayal? One sister? This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're being vindictive." I set the folder on his desk. "Open it." "What is this?" "Evidence." He opened the folder. Started reading. His expression shifted. Confusion, then recognition, then something that looked almost like disappointment, but I couldn't tell if it was directed at Emma and David or at me for having the audacity to document what they'd done. "This doesn't change anything," he said finally. "They made a mistake. A big one. But families forgive. You forgive Emma. You work things out with David. You move forward."
"No."
"Claire. She's pregnant, Dad. Did she tell you that part?" He looked up. "She mentioned it. Did she tell you it's David's?" His silence was answer enough. "And you still think I should forgive her? That I should work things out? With my husband who got my sister pregnant while she was living in my house. It's complicated." "It's not complicated. It's simple. They betrayed me. I'm divorcing him and cutting her out of my life. That's not vindictive. That's self-respect. She's your sister. She was my sister. Now she's just someone who slept with my husband." My mother appeared in the doorway. "Claire, please don't say things like that." Emma's upstairs crying. She's a mess. She needs her family right now. She needed her family when she decided to sleep with David. She didn't think about that then. She made a mistake. Stop calling it a mistake, I said, my voice finally rising. Mistakes are accidental. This was a choice. Multiple choices. Every single day, for 3 months, they chose to lie to me. They chose to betray me. They chose each other over me. That's not a mistake. That's who they are. My father stood up. That's enough. You're upset, and you have every right to be. But you will not come into my house and speak to your mother like that. Your house, I repeated. That's right. Your house. Where Emma still lives. Where you're still protecting her. Where you've always protected her from every consequence of every bad decision she's ever made. We're her parents. And you're mine too. But you're not asking how I am. You're not asking what I need. You're asking me to forgive the person who destroyed my marriage so she doesn't have to feel bad about what she did. That's not fair. No, it's not. None of this is fair. But I'm done pretending it is. I picked up the folder from his desk. I came here to tell you in person what I've already done. I've filed for divorce. I've frozen our joint accounts. I've changed the locks. David's moved out. Emma's not welcome in my home ever again. And if you want to keep enabling her, that's your choice. But it means choosing her over me. You're making us choose? My mother's voice was shaking.
No.
You already chose. You chose when you called me here to convince me to forgive her instead of calling her to account for what she did. I'm just acknowledging it. Claire, you can't mean that, my father said. We're your family. Family doesn't do what she did. And family doesn't ask me to accept it. So, what? You're just going to cut us all off. Never speak to us again. I'm going to build a life that doesn't include people who think betraying me is something I should just get over. That's cruel.
No, Dad.
That's boundaries. Something I should have set a long time ago. I walked toward the door. My mother stepped in front of me. Please don't leave like this, she said. Emma needs to apologize. She wants to apologize. Just let her come down and talk to you. I don't want her apology. Claire. An apology doesn't change anything. It doesn't undo what she did. It doesn't make me trust her again. It just makes her feel better about herself. And I'm not interested in making her feel better. She's pregnant and scared and alone. She's not alone. She has you. She has David, apparently.
She'll be fine.
She always is. Because people like you make sure she never has to face the real consequences of her choices. I moved past my mother and opened the front door. Behind me, I heard my father's voice. If you walk out that door, don't expect us to come running when you change your mind. I turned back. I won't change my mind. And I don't expect anything from you anymore. That's the whole point. I left. I drove home through midday traffic, hands steady on the wheel. Mind clear. No tears. No regrets. Just a strange sense of lightness, like I'd been carrying something heavy for years and had finally set it down. My phone started ringing 20 minutes after I got home. My mother. Then my father. Then Emma. Then my mother again. I let them all go to voicemail. I listened to exactly one, Emma's, where she sobbed about how sorry she was, how she never meant to hurt me, how she needed me to understand that she loved David and this was real and she hoped someday I could be happy for them. Happy for them. I deleted the message and blocked all 3 of their numbers. The next week was a blur of paperwork and lawyer meetings and dividing assets. David tried to contest the fault-based divorce, claiming the affair hadn't affected our marriage's breakdown. My lawyer showed the judge the evidence I'd compiled. The judge wasn't impressed with David's argument. 2 weeks after I found them, I got a call from my Aunt Linda, my mother's sister. She lived 2 hours away, and we'd always been close, though we didn't see each other often. I heard what happened, she said. Your mother called me, asked me to talk some sense into you. And I told her she was out of her mind if she thought you should forgive Emma for this. I felt something loosen in my chest. Thank you. I also told her that if she keeps choosing Emma's feelings over your dignity, she's going to lose you permanently. She didn't want to hear it. I'm not surprised. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. What you're doing takes guts. Most people fold when their family pressures them. You didn't. It doesn't feel like bravery. It just feels like survival. That's what bravery is, honey. Surviving the people who are supposed to protect you. We talked for another hour. She told me her guest room was always available if I needed space. She promised to check in weekly. She didn't try to fix anything or convince me to reconcile. She just listened. It was the first conversation I'd had in 2 weeks where someone treated me like I mattered more than keeping the peace. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. David got his clothes, his car, and a wake-up call about what adultery actually costs in a fault-based divorce. I got the house, most of our savings, and my life back. His lawyer tried to argue that Emma's pregnancy proved they were in a committed relationship now, as if that somehow made what they'd done more acceptable. The judge disagreed. I heard through mutual friends that David moved in with Emma at our parents' house, that they were trying to make it work for the baby, that my parents were helping with expenses since neither of them could afford a place on their own. I felt nothing about any of it. My mother tried one more time to reach me, showing up at my office 3 months after I'd walked out of their house. My assistant buzzed me from the lobby. "Your mother's here. She says it's important. Tell her I'm in a meeting. She says she'll wait. Tell her I'm in meetings all day." There was a pause. "She's crying, Claire." That's not my problem anymore. My assistant, Jessica, who'd worked with me for 2 years and knew exactly what had happened, said quietly, "I'll take care of it." 10 minutes later, Jessica came to my office.
She left.
"But she wanted me to give you this." It was a letter, handwritten on my mother's stationery. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something made me open it. The letter was everything I expected. How much they missed me. How Emma was struggling. How the baby was due in 2 months and Emma wanted me to be part of the child's life. How they understood I was hurt, but surely enough time had passed that I could find it in my heart to forgive. How family was supposed to stick together no matter what. How I was being selfish and cruel, and they didn't even recognize who I'd become. That last part made me laugh. They didn't recognize me because I'd finally stopped being the person they'd expected me to be. The responsible one. The understanding one. The one who sacrificed her own needs so everyone else could be comfortable. I wrote one sentence on the back of the letter. "I know exactly who I am now. That's why I'm not coming back." I mailed it to them the next day. Emma had the baby in November. A girl. I know because Linda told me when she called for our weekly check-in. She'd gone to the hospital, curious to see how Emma was handling motherhood. "She looks exhausted," Linda said. "The baby's beautiful, though. Looks like Emma. Good for her. Your parents were there. Your mother asked if I'd spoken to you. What did you say?" "I said you were doing well, that you'd bought new furniture, that you looked happy." "I am happy. I know." That's what I told her. She didn't seem to know what to do with that information. 6 months after the baby was born, I ran into David at a coffee shop downtown. He was alone, looking tired, wearing the same shirt I'd seen him wear dozens of times during our marriage. He saw me and hesitated, clearly debating whether to approach. I didn't move, didn't acknowledge him, just waited to see what he'd choose. He chose to walk over.
"Claire," he said.
"Hi. David. You look good. Happy." "I am." He shifted his weight. "I've been wanting to talk to you. To explain. I don't need an explanation. I need to give you one. What I did was unforgivable. I know that. I've been going to therapy trying to understand why I sabotaged everything we had. Emma and I were not. It's not what I thought it would be. I'm not interested in your regrets. I know. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Truly. You deserved better. I did. That's why I left. Your parents told me you won't speak to any of them, that you've cut them off completely. That's not accurate. I didn't cut them off. I stopped participating in relationships where I was expected to accept being treated badly. That's the same thing. No, it's not. One implies I'm being cruel. The other acknowledges that they're the ones who chose Emma over me. I just stopped pretending that was acceptable. He looked at his coffee cup. She's struggling, you know.
Emma.
Being a mom is harder than she thought. Your parents help, but she's overwhelmed. She asks about you sometimes. Whether I think you'll ever forgive her. What do you tell her? That I don't know. The answer is no. Not because I'm holding a grudge, but because forgiveness would require me to let her back into my life, and I'm not willing to do that. She made her choices. I'm living with mine. She can live with hers. That's harsh.
That's honest.
There's a difference. He nodded slowly. I guess I hoped that enough time would. Time doesn't change what happened.
It just gives you distance from it.
I have that distance now. I'm not interested in closing it. So that's it? You're just done with all of us. I'm done letting people who hurt me believe they're entitled to my forgiveness just because they feel bad about what they did. Your guilt isn't my responsibility, David. Neither is Emma's. Neither is my parents'. You all made choices. Those choices have consequences. This is what consequences look like. He stood there for another moment, looking like he wanted to say something else, but couldn't find the words. Finally, he just nodded and walked away. I finished my coffee and went home to the house that was fully mine now, decorated exactly how I wanted it, filled with only the things and people I chose to let in. A year after the divorce, I was promoted to partner at my firm. Linda came to Charleston to celebrate with me. We had dinner at an expensive restaurant overlooking the harbor. Your mother called me last week, she said over dessert. Asked if I'd try one more time to convince you to reach out. Emma's having a hard time, apparently. David left. Moved out. They're not together anymore. He's paying child support, but that's it. Your parents are helping Emma with the baby full-time now. Your mother thinks this would be a good time for you to come back into the family. Now that you've proven your point. I set down my fork. Proven my point. Her words, not mine. She thinks this was about proving a point? I think she genuinely doesn't understand what you did or why you did it. She sees it as you being stubborn, waiting for them to beg enough. She doesn't grasp that you actually meant it when you said you were done. I did mean it. I know. But people like your mother don't believe that boundaries are real until they're forced to live with them long enough to understand you're not coming back. I'm not coming back. I know that too. And I'm glad. You deserve people in your life who respect you. We finished dinner and I drove home, thinking about my mother's phone call to Linda. About how even now, a year later, they still believed this was temporary. That eventually I'd get lonely enough or guilty enough or weak enough to come back and pretend everything was fine. They didn't understand that I wasn't lonely. I had friends now, real ones, who I'd let myself get close to instead of keeping everyone at arm's length because I was too busy managing Emma's disasters. I had work I was proud of. I had a home that felt like mine. I had peace. I didn't miss the chaos. I didn't miss the drama. I didn't miss being the person everyone expected to sacrifice herself to keep everyone else comfortable. 2 years after I walked out of my parents' house, I started dating again. Nothing serious at first, just coffee, dinners, learning how to trust again in small increments. I met Marcus at a conference in Atlanta. He was funny, kind, straightforward. When I told him about my divorce, about my sister, about my family, he didn't try to fix it or convince me to reconcile. He just listened and said, "That must have been incredibly painful. I'm sorry you went through that." It was the first time someone had acknowledged my pain without immediately following it up with expectations about what I should do with it. We've been together for 8 months now. He's met Linda. He knows about my family situation. He doesn't push. He just shows up, consistently, honestly, exactly as he is. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever hear from my parents again. If Emma will reach out when her daughter is old enough to ask about her aunt. If David ever tells anyone the truth about why our marriage ended. Mostly, I don't think about them at all. Because the thing about walking away from people who hurt you isn't that it makes the hurt disappear. It's that it makes room for something better. Something quieter. Something that doesn't require you to betray yourself to maintain it. I learned that you can't make people choose you. But you can choose yourself. And sometimes that's the only choice that matters. My father was wrong when he said families work through things. Some things aren't meant to be worked through. Some betrayals are too fundamental. Some relationships are too broken. And that's okay. Because on the other side of that acceptance is a life where you don't have to shrink yourself to fit into other people's comfort zones. Where you don't have to forgive people who aren't sorry. Where you don't have to explain why betrayal is unacceptable. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not bitter. I'm not waiting for apologies or explanations or for them to finally understand what they did wrong. I'm just living my life. With people who earned their place in it. With boundaries that protect me instead of limiting me. With the understanding that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to participate in your own mistreatment. They wanted to talk. I spoke. And what I said was no. Not to punish them. Not to hurt them. Not to prove a point. But because I finally understood that I deserved better than people who thought loving me meant I should accept being betrayed. So I chose better. And I've never looked back.